Flow states have triggers, preconditions that lead to more flow. You want more flow in your life? The triggers are your toolkit. There are 26 known triggers. There are probably way more. That's just what we've discovered so far. And they all have one thing in common. Flow can only show up when all of our attention is in the right here, the right now, on the task at hand. That's what all the triggers do. They work a bunch of different ways neurobiologically, but they drive our attention into the now, onto the task at hand. Part of our biology is that we have a salience detection system. When novelty shows up in the world, we notice it, right? This kept us alive. The problem is we have cell phones that are literally designed to abuse this, right? They've been built, designed to resemble slot machines and how they try to get your attention. They use novelty to try to get your attention. We are not more powerful than, this is hardwired biology. We're not going to win that fight. So we teach people to practice distraction management. When we talk about flow as peak performance, one of the things that goes through the roof is productivity. And we know this. So McKinsey, giant business consultancy, went around the globe. They spent 10 years trying to figure out how much more productive executives are in flow than out of flow. On average, it was 500% more productive. So this means you can go to work on Monday, spend Monday in a flow state, take Tuesday through Friday off, and you get as much done as your steady state peers. 2 days a week in flow, full days, which is difficult, but you're 1,000% more productive than the competition. Huge boosts in productivity. Okay. You will get time back for your life by manicuring a space for complete concentration. I'm asking you for time. We're all busy, right? Everybody is busy. So you got to give me time for complete concentration. You're going to end up being so productive in this time that you'll end up with getting time back. The most common flow state on earth is reading. The second most common flow state on earth, and this is early research, I don't know if it's still true, but it was, so there's two versions of flow. There's individual flow, me in a flow state, you in a flow state, or there's group flow. It's a shared collective version of a flow state. It could be interpersonal flow, two people lost in a great conversation, group flow, team flow, a fourth quarter comeback in basketball or football, or a great rock concert, the band just totally comes together, or communitas. This is flow at scale. It's huge. When you go to a rock concert and everybody merges with the music and you're all clapping and sync and all, that's communitas, right? It's flow at scale. So the most common, besides reading, is interpersonal flow. Two middle managers in an office environment having a conversation at work. They get so sucked into the conversation that a couple hours go by. So neither of those examples, as you can imagine, involve artists or athletes. Dr. Andrew Newberg, my first mentor, had just done the very first brain imaging. We didn't yet have fMRI, used a SPECT scanner to image Tibetan Buddhists and Franciscan nuns during ecstatic meditation when the nuns would feel one with Jesus' love and the Buddhists were one with the universe. And I called him because I saw his research. I read his research. I was like, dude, what we're seeing with the surfers in this like state that I think we're calling flow, is that the same thing is going on? And he, to his amazing credit, said, well, I don't know, but it sure sounds similar. So let's find out together. And that was my sort of gateway. It wasn't just that I was curious about this and I was working on this stuff. It was that one of the best neuroscientists in the world said, I don't know, but that's a good question. And I'll help you figure it out. And so that was sort of how all this started. But it was really, in the beginning, it was really complicated to try to, are we looking at mystical experiences? 30 years ago when I got started, we didn't have a clue. I started in action sports, right? And I was living in these communities, and this was during the 90s. The 90s in action sports and surfing, skiing, rock climbing, snowboarding, all of it, it's talked about as like the era impossible. More impossible feats got accomplished, stuff that had never been done before. We didn't think it was ever going to be done than ever before. But I was in these communities and I was seeing it firsthand. Talking to them, flow was always in the mix of like how they did it, right? But it was these people. They came from broken homes, had bad childhoods, had very little money. They had very little education. There was a lot of risk-taking in these communities. There was a bunch of substance abuse. And normally you put those things together in a community, people die young or go to jail. They do not reinvent what's possible for the human species. Anybody can use flow to do the extraordinary. You hear a lot about people talking about how people started second base or third base. These people were starting so far beyond before home plate. It was a miracle that they even got an at-bat. And yet it was these people who reinvented what was possible for our species. Geeky flow detail. Flow states have cycles. They're not a binary. It's not in the zone, out of the zone. It's a 4-stage cycle. And you got to move all the way through all 4 stages to get back into flow. You can't live in a flow state. There's no permanent, always on flow state because of this cycle. The front end of a flow state is called struggle. It is a loading phase. You are learning, you are loading and overloading the brain with information. When you're in this struggle phase and this loading phase, frustration is literally built into how it works. Peak performance is actually a sign that you're moving in the right direction. You're exactly where you need to be. Doesn't feel any better, but literally this is how it's supposed to feel. The more frustrated we are, the better chance we actually have of solving the problem in the end and learning the thing we're trying to learn. So the more frustrated, the better. What I like to tell people is like, take it to the point that your head's about to explode and then walk away. There's a standard Tibetan death practice, which is a 3-line mantra, which is everything isn't permanent. Death comes without a warning. This body too will be a corpse someday. It's amazing.
That's really positive.
It's recognizing that change is foundational to life is part of what you do to maintain a healthy mindset towards aging. It's one of the ways to train mindset is to notice, because the brain tends to trick us into believing that stasis is we think we're the same person that we were 10 years ago, 20, and we're not at all, but it's this illusion of self and things like that. So it's really useful. And the other thing is it's a really solid reminder to sort of live every day as if it was your last, because it very much could be.
If you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to subscribe. And to stay updated on everything that the Action Catalyst is up to, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Action Catalyst Podcast and on Twitter at Catalyst_Action. And thanks for listening.